After Terra's $40 billion collapse, Kwon fleeing from South Korea, losing to the SEC in civil court, and pleading guilty to criminal fraud charges, Do's sentencing is finally here. The judge is set to rule, and while Kwon and his legal team have asked for no more than 5 years, the government has said 12 years in US prison is the minimum for justice to be served. So what will be Do's fate? Here at Coinage, we've covered the full history of Terra founder Kwon ever since we brought you our award-winning documentary Into the Collapse back in 2022. So perhaps it's fitting to bring you the final chapter in what has been a story of cascading dominoes since Terra's demise. But now, Judge Engelmeyer will have the final say as he weighs the closing arguments from both sides. So let's dig into those arguments and see how 5 and 12 years might compare with crypto sentencings from the past. Because as we also covered, SBF got 25 years after going to trial and losing. His ex-girlfriend Caroline Ellison got 2 years in the same trial even after she cooperated and testified in the government's case against Sam. And Celsius founder Alex Mashinsky got sentenced to 12 years after he pled guilty to fraud charges stemming from the collapse of the crypto borrow and lending platform that he founded. But in his final defense memo and letter to the judge, Kwon tried once again to distance the fraud he's pleading guilty to from what happened with SBF and FTX customer funds. And without recapping everything, Do specifically responded to one point that the SEC made central in the trial they won against Terra, that neither Do nor Terra ever materially informed investors that their stablecoin, UST, only repegged to $1 after significant intervention from Jump Crypto in 2021. In his memo, Do wrote that, quote, May 2021 was sold and marketed as a successful experiment and a sole win for Terra's stability mechanism, and that was wrong. He goes on to say, I misled many investors into believing UST was a lot less experimental than it was, and made them unwitting participants in the ultimate failure of UST in May 2022. The Terra community was owed the truth and full picture from me, not Jump, and it is I who failed to deliver. Do also tries to explain why that might have been more complicated than just fully being allowed to mention Jump's intervention openly, saying, quote, after the markets had stabilized, as per our agreement, I was asked not to publicly discuss what Jump had done. I told myself, I don't know exactly what they did, and am not allowed to say what I don't know anyway, but in retrospect, this was a poor excuse. How Jump had helped is immaterial. That they had helped at all needed to have been made public, with investors then being free to make their own decisions. The government, however, in their sentencing submission, is not so accepting of that argument. As prosecutors write, quote, he shifts blame and minimizes his own role in UST's near depegging in May 2021. Let it be clear, the half-truths, evasion, and outright lies were Kwon's. They cannot be diminished or excused by shifting blame to the trading firm. The government is also not sold on completely distinguishing Kwon's fraud sentencing from SBF's case or Mashinsky's, writing, quote, Kwon claims that the 3553 factors favor a far shorter sentence than the one Mr. Mashinsky received. That is incorrect. While Mashinsky was not detained pending trial and contested core aspects of his conduct, neither did he obtain a fake passport and try to live on the lam in a foreign country. All things considered, it's almost an impossible task to try and guess how Judge Engelmeyer might rule here. While it is true that SBF was sentenced to 25 years, he pissed off the judge in his trial at almost every turn. In Do's case, he's obviously waived his right to a trial and chose instead just to plead guilty. That usually wins some benefits at sentencings, but being in the courtroom this year, I can say it's extremely unclear what Judge Engelmeyer thinks of Do. And adding to the complexity, the plea deal introduces an option for the government to support extraditing Do back to his native South Korea after just half his sentence in the US is served. Also still up in the air is the question of whether any time Do is spent behind bars in Montenegro or here in the US might be applied to his eventual sentence. On top of that, Judge Engelmeyer has now asked both sides what kind of assurances there might be that South Korea holds up any of what's agreed to in Do's sentencing. As always, we'll be in the courtroom to cover exactly how Judge Engelmeyer rules. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe for the ensuing coverage.